2026 Gun Law Alert. From NYC to Philly, what you think is legal to carry could actually land you in jail. Just one mistake, one wrong street, and suddenly you're on the wrong side of the law. In this video, we're exposing the hidden traps in the new gun laws, showing exactly what not to do and how to stay safe before it's too late. If you carry, you cannot afford to miss this. Your freedom could depend on it. On January 30th, 2026, James was racing through the streets of Philadelphia, desperately trying to reach his mother's hospital. In the car, he had his legally owned handgun, following every law to the letter. But at a routine checkpoint, everything changed. Police pulled him over, and due to a new 2026 firearm transport law, James was suddenly arrested for an act he thought was completely legal. One moment, he was focused on saving his mother. The next, he was facing handcuffs, legal confusion, and a nightmare he never saw coming. This shocking incident highlights just how dangerous the new gun laws can be, even for law-abiding citizens, and why understanding every city's rules is more critical than ever. As James sped through the early Philadelphia traffic, thoughts raced through his mind. He mentally mapped the quickest route to the hospital, avoiding construction zones and potential delays. The streets were eerily quiet, and the city seemed to sense the urgency of his mission. His mother's life depended on him, and all he could think about was getting there as fast as possible. He didn't consider the traffic cameras, the random police checkpoints, or the strict new firearm laws that had quietly gone into effect just weeks prior in 2026. These laws were designed to prevent reckless handling of guns, but in James's case, they became a trap no one could have anticipated. It happened just as he approached the intersection of Broad and Market Street, a routine checkpoint manned by Philadelphia police. They waved him over. James's heart sank. His adrenaline spiked. He pulled over immediately, rolling down his window while keeping his hands visible. "Good morning, sir. License, registration, and insurance, please," said the officer. James complied quickly, handing over the requested documents. He noticed the officer's gaze linger briefly on his glove compartment, and then the words that would change everything came. "Sir, is that a firearm I see? Are you aware of the new 2026 transport laws?" James froze. He had heard vaguely about new regulations, but nothing had indicated that his careful adherence to previous rules would land him in legal trouble. "It's licensed, officer. I'm just on my way to the hospital," James explained, trying to keep his voice calm. The officer nodded but called for backup. Within minutes, 2 more officers arrived. What was meant to be a routine stop turned into a full-scale intervention. James's car was searched, his handgun confiscated, and he was placed under arrest, all while his mind screamed that he was doing nothing wrong. His mother's emergency now seemed secondary to a legal nightmare he had never imagined. The arrest stunned James. As he sat in the back of the police cruiser, he replayed every moment of that morning. He thought about the countless precautions he had taken, the safety training, the permit renewals, the careful storage of his firearm in the vehicle. None of it mattered under the new 2026 transport laws, which included a clause restricting how firearms could be carried in vehicles, even for licensed owners. Simply having the gun in the glove compartment, facing the dashboard, was now considered a violation unless a specific city-issued endorsement was displayed. James had never even known such an endorsement existed. He realized, in a chilling moment, that being law-abiding no longer guaranteed safety. The laws had become a minefield for honest citizens, and he had just stepped on the first explosive. While in custody, James reflected on the absurdity and danger of the situation. He remembered his mother's frail voice over the phone, asking him to hurry, and he felt a mix of guilt and fear that was almost paralyzing. Could his mother survive without him? Could he even get to her before the paperwork, arrests, and legal bureaucracy drained any hope? He glanced at the other people in the holding cell, some arrested for minor infractions, some for serious crimes. And there he sat, a man whose only crime was being unaware of the new legal technicalities, a law that was meant to protect people but ended up trapping the most responsible citizens. His case, he realized, would soon become an example cited in articles, videos, and discussions across social media. Back at the hospital, his mother waited, unaware of the legal chaos unfolding. Doctors were focused on her care, but James's absence was noticed by the staff. A nurse finally called to ask why he hadn't arrived yet. His sister's voice cracked as she explained, "He was pulled over, with the gun." The words barely registered until the reality hit. The emergency he was rushing to help had become secondary to a legal technicality. The emotional tension was unbearable, both for James and his family. What should have been a routine, lawful action to ensure his mother's safety had spiraled into a full-blown legal disaster. The next few hours were a blur of paperwork, questioning, and legal confusion. The arresting officers explained the law in fragments, each detail more bewildering than the last. Section 3A of the 2026 Philadelphia Firearm Transport Act, one officer said, requires firearms to be in a specific holster type and stored in a locked compartment under certain conditions. James realized he had the correct permit, proper training, and safety procedures, but he had missed one minor, recently added regulation, and that was enough for the arrest. Legal experts later would call this type of law a trap law, designed to catch honest citizens off guard while claiming to improve public safety. For James, it felt like a cruel joke by the system. Throughout the day, James's story started spreading locally. Other gun owners in Philadelphia and nearby cities like NYC began sharing similar experiences online, expressing shock and fear. "If this can happen to James, it can happen to anyone," one post read. Legal forums buzzed with heated debates over the fairness and clarity of the new regulations. Many citizens who had complied with all previous laws suddenly realized they had to relearn the rules entirely, city by city, street by street. The emotional tension of James's story resonated with viewers because it highlighted a universal fear. Even following the law perfectly can no longer guarantee protection. This incident also served as a wake-up call for legislators, advocates, and everyday citizens. News outlets picked up the story, reporting that legal gun owners were now at risk under 2026's new city-specific transport laws. James's arrest is a cautionary tale, one article read, for all responsible citizens who believed that legality equaled safety. Public reaction was mixed. Some applauded the strict enforcement of firearm regulations, while others criticized the complexity and unpredictability of the law. The debate sparked protests, legal petitions, and a flood of social media videos breaking down exactly what had happened to James. In the following days, legal experts explained in detail how to avoid the trap James fell into. Key points included never storing a firearm in an unlocked glove compartment, always using a law-approved holster, understanding city-specific rules, and keeping documentation updated for any new changes in legislation. James himself, once released, shared his story online to warn others, becoming a reluctant hero for gun owners nationwide. His personal emergency, combined with the arrest, made the video go viral, attracting tens of thousands of viewers who were shocked to learn that their own legally carried firearms could put them behind bars without warning. The emotional element of James's story cannot be understated. He had acted with every intention of protecting life, yet the law turned his good deed into a nightmare. Families across the country connected with his experience, imagining themselves in his shoes. What if they had an emergency, a medical crisis, or a life or death situation? Could a simple misunderstanding or outdated knowledge about new firearm laws destroy their lives in seconds? The story created empathy, fear, and urgency, a perfect storm for a YouTube video that informs, shocks, and engages. From a legal perspective, the 2026 law highlighted the complexity of firearms legislation in the U.S. It was no longer enough to have a permit. gun owners now had to be hyper-aware of city ordinances, transport rules, storage requirements, and documentation standards. James's case served as a real-world example of why understanding the nuances of the law is crucial. Every traffic stop, every checkpoint, could become a legal minefield, even for citizens who had never broken a law in their life. The implications were far-reaching. Gun advocacy groups began pushing for clearer laws, educational campaigns were launched, and social media influencers created step-by-step guides to ensure compliance with the new regulations. James's ordeal also emphasized the human element of legal enforcement. While the officers followed the law, the situation raised ethical questions about how laws are applied and whether citizens are truly being protected or punished. The emotional tension in the story, racing to a loved one only to be arrested for a legal act, struck a chord with audiences worldwide. Many viewers commented that they would now rethink how they carry firearms, double-check every regulation, and be more vigilant about new legislation. By the end of the story, James had spent nearly 12 hours navigating legal bureaucracy, contacting attorneys, and calming his frantic family. When he finally reached his mother, he realized the full impact of what had happened. A simple emergency trip had turned into a life-altering experience. The narrative captured the essence of the 2026 gun law trap. Even a responsible, law-abiding citizen could fall victim without warning. It was a cautionary tale, a warning, and a lesson for anyone who carried firearms legally.